Good evening. This is Hakimah reporting live with urgent news on the global climate crisis. Around the world, extreme weather events are becoming the new normal. Deadly floods sweeping through Southeast Asia, wildfires destroying millions of acres, and glaciers melting at record speed. Scientists warn that global warming is accelerating faster than expected, putting lives, cultures, and ecosystems at risk. But behind every disaster, there's also a story of resilience and communication. How we talk, listen, and work together across cultures can shape the future of our planet. In this project, we will explore how effective intercultural communication plays a key role in addressing the challenges of global warming and how people from different parts of the world are finding common ground to protect our shared home, the Earth. I'm Hakimah Hazira binti Haris, reporter from Group TESOL PPISMP 2025-2030 intake. Now, let us move on to our main agenda, global warming and intercultural communication. So, what exactly is global warming? Global warming refers to the long-term rise in the Earth's average temperature, mainly caused by human activities such as burning fossil fuels, deforestation, and industrial pollution. These activities release greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane, which trap heat in the atmosphere, creating what's known as the greenhouse effect. According to National Geographic 2022, the greenhouse effect happens when the sun's rays penetrate the atmosphere and the Earth's surface reflects that heat. Over time, this leads to rising sea levels, stronger heat waves, and unpredictable weather patterns that affect people all over the world. But beyond the science, global warming is also a human and cultural issue. Different communities experience it in different ways, and how we communicate and cooperate across cultures can make all the difference in fighting it. But beyond the science, global warming is also a human and cultural issue. Different communities experience it in different ways, and how we communicate and cooperate across cultures can make all the difference in fighting it. Global warming affects everyone, but not everyone experiences it in the same way. Around the world, different communities face unique challenges, and their cultural backgrounds often shape how they understand and respond to these problems. For example, in small island nations such as Tuvalu and Fiji, rising sea levels are not just an environmental threat. They are a cultural tragedy. Entire communities are forced to relocate as their ancestral lands slowly disappear underwater. According to the United Nations 2024, sea levels are already rising and threatening low-lying island nations and coastal communities. These islands hold not only homes but also centuries of tradition, identity, and spiritual connection to the sea. Meanwhile, in regions like sub-Saharan Africa, farmers struggle with long periods of drought and extreme heat. According to Lambe et al. 2024, drought emerges as a critical issue in sub-Saharan Africa, where most of the population relies on rain-fed subsistence, agriculture, and traditional water management systems. Agriculture is the heart of many African cultures, so when crops fail, it's not just about food, it affects family structures, local economies, and social stability. Some communities rely on traditional rain rituals or community cooperation to cope with the changing climate, showing how cultural practices still play a role in adaptation today. In contrast, countries like Japan and South Korea have developed strong technological responses to global warming, from energy efficient cities to recycling systems. These societies use modern science and innovation, but Their cultural values of discipline, respect for nature, and collective responsibility make those efforts even more effective. Even here in Malaysia, we can see how culture influences environmental awareness. According to Raini and Lipen et al. 2025, Malaysia has made strides in implementing environmental practices, such as the adoption of green technologies and stricter regulations on pollution. Also, many people still practice traditional habits like saving water, reducing food waste, or using natural materials, values that align with sustainability, even if they come from cultural customs rather than modern environmental policies. These examples show that culture shapes how people view and deal with global warming. For some, it is a spiritual issue. For others, it's a social or technological one. But no matter the perspective, every culture holds knowledge, values, and traditions that can help the world move toward a more sustainable future. And this is exactly where intercultural communication becomes powerful. When people from different backgrounds share what they know, listen to each other's experiences, and find new solutions together. So, understanding global warming from a cultural perspective helps us see that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. What works in one country might not work in another. But through communication, collaboration, and mutual respect, we can build solutions that fit everyone. Now that we have seen how global warming affects people differently around the world, let's talk about something even more powerful, which is intercultural communication and how it helps us deal with this global challenge together. According to Muscato, 2015, intercultural communication refers to communications that take place between people of different cultures or backgrounds. Well, it simply means the exchange of information and ideas between people from different cultural backgrounds. But it is more than just talking, it's about listening, understanding, and showing respect toward different values, beliefs, and ways of life. When we talk about global warming, this kind of communication becomes extremely important because climate change doesn't just affect one country or one group of people. It is a shared crisis. That means cooperation is the only way forward. But cooperation is impossible without understanding each other first. And that's where intercultural communication plays its role. Let's start with an example everyone knows. The Paris Agreement. This was a global climate treaty signed by almost every nation in the world. Imagine how complex that process must have been. Countries speaking different languages, with different levels of development, different priorities, and even different political views. Yet, through dialogue, negotiation, and respect, they found common ground. That is intercultural communication in action, where science, culture, and diplomacy meet to create shared understanding. It's not just about agreeing on numbers of carbon limits, it's about connecting human experiences from every corner of the globe. Another powerful example comes from non-governmental organizations or NGOs. Many international NGOs like Greenpeace and the World Wildlife Fund work closely with local communities around the world. They have learned that solutions to climate change aren't always high-tech. Sometimes they come from local knowledge. Indigenous people in the Amazon, Borneo, or the Arctic have been protecting their environments for generations. They have unique ways of conserving forests, managing water, and maintaining balance with nature. But for this knowledge to be recognized globally, it needs to be communicated and understood across cultures. NGOs help bridge the gap by listening and learning, not just teaching. It is a two-way relationship built on mutual respect. Without that cultural understanding, many international projects will fail. Because what works in one country might not fit another's traditions or beliefs. Intercultural communications ensures solutions are adapted to local contexts while keeping the global mission alive. In addition to organizations and governments, media and education also play huge roles in connecting cultures. Today, social media platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram allow environmental messages to travel across the world instantly. A teenager in Malaysia can post about flash floods, and someone in France can comment, "We're facing the same thing here." And that is intercultural communication. Simple, human, and global. These digital conversations create empathy. They help people realize that while we live in different countries, we are all facing the same crisis, and that feeling of shared responsibility is what drives collective action. Documentaries and educational programs also spread awareness across cultures. For example, international climate documentaries often include interviews with farmers, scientists, and activists from around the world. Hearing those diverse voices helps break stereotypes and shows that climate change is everyone's issue, not just a Western or scientific problem. Intercultural communication also helps bridge inequality in global discussions. For decades, environmental debates were dominated by powerful nations, often overlooking smaller countries or indigenous groups. But through intercultural platforms like the United Nations and international summits, these marginalized voices are finally being heard. When representatives from small island nations speak about losing their homes to rising sea levels, it's not just data, it's a human story that moves others to act. Their perspectives remind the world that climate change isn't a distant issue. It is already destroying cultures and communities today. This kind of emotional and cultural connection is what pushes global cooperation forward. Facts and science are important, but empathy, put through communication, is what motivates people to care. So in summary, intercultural communication helps in three main ways. The first one is building understanding by respecting cultural differences and learning from each other's experiences. Second one is encouraging cooperation through diplomacy, dialogue, and shared goals. And the last one is inspiring collective action by turning awareness into real change that includes everyone. When people communicate across cultures, they break down barriers of ignorance, pride, and misunderstanding. And that is exactly what we need to face a challenge as big as global warming, which is unity through understanding. So, intercultural communication isn't just about changing words. It is about exchanging hearts, ideas, and hope. It reminds us that even though we live in different parts of the world, we share one atmosphere, one environment, and one responsibility. By communicating effectively across cultures, we don't just talk about saving the planet, we actually begin to do it together. Now that we understand how intercultural communication connects people from all over the world, let's move on to what really matters: how that communication leads to solutions. Because awareness alone is not enough. What truly makes a difference is cooperation. People from different countries, cultures, and beliefs coming together to act. One of the most powerful examples of intercultural cooperation is through international climate agreements. The Paris Agreement, for instance, is not just a policy document, it is a symbol of unity. 195 countries, each with different priorities, came together and agreed to limit global temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees Celsius. That required tremendous intercultural dialogue. Countries had to listen, compromise, and respect each other's circumstances. For example, developing nations argued that they still needed to grow economically, while richer nations were urged to provide funding and technology. Instead of seeing those differences as barriers, negotiators used communication to build understanding and created a framework where everyone could contribute according to their capacity. That is intercultural cooperation at the highest level, transforming cultural, economic, and political differences into shared responsibility. Another key solution lies in technology exchange. Climate change can't be solved by one nation inventing something and then keeping it a secret. Intercultural cooperation allows technology like renewable energy systems, water-saving devices, and sustainable farming methods to be shared across borders. For instance, countries like Denmark and Germany have advanced knowledge of wind and solar power through partnerships that have helped developing countries in Asia and Africa build their own renewable energy sectors. On the other hand, many Asian nations, including Japan and South Korea, are leaders in green technology and recycling innovation, lessons that other countries have adopted. These exchanges don't just transfer tools, they transfer trust. They show that collaboration is stronger than competition when it comes to protecting our planet. But not all solutions come from laboratories or conferences. Many come from indigenous knowledge and traditional practices that have existed for centuries. Communities in Borneo, the Amazon, and parts of Africa have long practiced sustainable living, which are protecting forests, using natural resources carefully, and respecting the balance of nature. When international organizations communicate respectfully with these local groups, they learn sustainable methods that modern science sometimes overlooks. For example, traditional irrigation systems used by farmers in India and Indonesia are now being reintroduced as models of water conservation. In the Pacific Islands, indigenous methods of reef protection are being combined with modern marine science to restore coral ecosystems. These examples show that true intercultural cooperation values every culture equally, whether it is a scientist in Europe or a tribal elder in the rainforest. Each carries wisdom that contributes to the planet's survival. In today's digital world, intercultural cooperation has become even easier and more powerful thanks to technology. Social media and digital campaigns connect millions of young people who care about climate action. Think about movements like Fridays for Future, started by Greta Thunberg in Sweden. It began as one person's protest but grew into a global youth movement involving students from every continent, from Europe to Asia, Africa, and Latin America. They don't all speak the same language, but they share the same goal. They use hashtags, live streams, and online forums to communicate, proving that climate action is not limited by geography or culture. These digital spaces are a form of modern intercultural communication where young people learn, organize, and inspire one another. It shows that no matter where we come from, we can be united through the same message: protect the earth for future generations. Education is another powerful bridge that connects cultures and builds solutions. When schools include environmental awareness in their lessons, students start thinking globally but acting locally. International exchange programs allow young people to see how other countries face environmental issues. For instance, a student from Malaysia might visit Japan to learn about waste management, or a student from Germany might experience how communities in Indonesia restore mangroves. These experiences teach empathy, responsibility, and open-mindedness, qualities that make cooperation easier in the future. Education doesn't just transfer knowledge, it builds relationships, and those relationships are the foundation of global environmental unity. Another key to successful intercultural cooperation is cultural sensitivity, understanding that one message doesn't fit every audience. For example, a recycling campaign that works in the US might not succeed in rural Asia unless it is adapted to local customs. This is where intercultural communication skills make a difference. Learning how to deliver environmental messages that respect people's language, religion, and traditions. When people feel respected, they are more likely to join the cause. So, effective climate action depends not only on good science, but also on good communication. In the end, the greatest power we have isn't technology or money, it is understanding. Intercultural cooperation gives us that power to listen, to learn, and to act together. Now, as I come to the end of this message, I want to take a moment to think about what this really means. Global warming isn't just about melting ice or rising sea levels, it's about people, families losing homes, communities adapting, and cultures fighting to preserve what makes them unique. Yet, in all that struggle, there is hope. Because every time people reach out across borders, share their knowledge, or simply listen to one another, we move one step closer to healing our planet.